ஸோ இப்போ வந்து என்ன பார்க்க போறோம்னா, ஆர்க்கிடெக்சர் கொஸ்டின்ஸ் அண்ட் ஆன்சர்ஸ் ஃபார் அட்வான்ஸ்ட் ஆங்குலர். How do you architect an Angular application for large scale enterprise use? Break the application into features module with lazy loading and use state management libraries like NGRX. How do you handle the complex state management in the Angular application? Use NGRX for a Redux like store and the side effects management for handling the large scale state. How do you optimize the Angular applications for high performance? Implement lazy loading, change detection strategy on push and ahead of time compilation. By using this, we can do the high performance. And then how do you explain the role of on push change detection? Change detection, how to improve the performance? This is the question. It optimizes the performance by limiting the changes detection to only when input properties changes. Input properties மட்டும் சேஞ்ச் ஆகுது மட்டும் டிடெக்ட் பண்றதுக்கு ஆன் புஷ் வந்து யூஸ் ஆகுது. What is server side rendering SSR? How does Angular Universal support it? SSR improves the performance and SEO by rendering the pages on the server. Angular Universal enable this. Okay. SSR improves the performance and then SEO by rendering the pages on the server. Angular Universal enables this. What is the importance of dependency injection in an Angular architecture? Dependency injection ensures the modularity, reusability, and then testability by injecting dependencies at runtime. Dependency injection in Angular. Okay. And how do you design shared module reusable component across applications? This one we can do it. Encapsulating the reusable components, directives, and then pipes in a shared module and import them across features feature modules. Okay. Shared pipe la வந்து போட்டு and then import them in across features module. Okay. What are the best practices for handling the API communication in the Angular application? Use services with HTTP client interceptors for common logic and observable for real time data handling. Okay. How do you ensure efficient routing in the large Angular applications? Use lazy loading, preloading strategies, and then fine grind routes guards for the routing management. Okay. And then explain the purpose of app initializer in the Angular. It allows you to perform the task like configuration, fetching before Angular initialize the app initializer வந்து it allows you to perform the task like configuration fetching before Angular initializes the app. How would you implement the multi-tenant how would you implement the multi-tenancy in the Angular application? Use dynamic module loading based on the tenant configuration. Manage different themes and then configuration per tenant. Okay. Use dynamic module loading based on the okay, tenant configuration based பண்ணி மாடியூல்ஸை வந்து லோட் பண்ணணும். அதே போல் மேனேஜ் த டிஃப்ரெண்ட் தீம்ஸ் பேஸ்ட் ஆன் த டெனன்ட் கான்ஃபிகரேஷன். ஓகே, அவ்வளோதான். வாட் ஸ்ட்ராட்டஜிஸ் வந்து would you employ for optimizing the bundle size in the Angular? பண்டல் சைஸை வந்து எப்படி வந்து கம்மி பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்றது கேட்குறானுங்க. எப்படி கம்மி பண்ணலாம்? AOT, ahead of time compilation, lazy loading, tree shaking to reduce the bundle size. Okay. What is the role of service workers in the Angular and how do you implement them? சர்வீஸ் ஒர்க்கரோட வேலைன்னா எப்படி வந்து இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ணுறது? சர்வீஸ் ஒர்க்கர்ஸ் கேஷ் த அசெட்ஸ் and API responses for offline usage, enhancing the PWA capabilities. Cache the assets. இதான் ஒர்க். ஓகே ஓகே. சர்வீஸ் ஒர்க்கர்ஸ் வந்து இதெல்லாம் கேஷ் பண்ணி வச்சுக்கும். Okay. How do you handle the authentication and the authorization in the Angular? இது நிறைய வழி இருக்குது. So many ways. Okay. Implementing the route guards, token based authentication, JWT, role based access management, RBACs. How do you handle the form validation in the complex forms? Form validation in the complex forms. Use reactive form with the custom validations for complex business logic validations. How do you design the Angular comp application to handle the SEO efficiently? SEO வந்து எப்படி efficient-ஆ handle பண்ண முடியும்? Use universal server side rendering and then implementing meta tags using the meta services. SEO எப்படி implement பண்ண use Angular universal for server side rendering and then implement the meta tags using the meta services. What are Angular's rendering engines? Rendering engine என்னென்ன இருக்கு? How do you differ Vue engine versus Livy engine? Livy is the most recent, smaller, faster, and more efficient rendering engine compared to Vue engine. Okay. ரெண்டரிங் என்ஜின் வந்து வாட் ஆர் லிவியும் அப்புறமா வந்து வீவ் என்ஜின் இது ரெண்டும் தான் ரெண்டரிங் என்ஜின்ஸு. லிவி அண்ட் என்ஜின் வந்து இஸ் த மோர் ரீசெண்ட் ஸ்மாலர் ஃபாஸ்டராக இருக்கும் மோர் எஃபிஷியன்ட் ரெண்டரிங் என்ஜின் compared to Weave engine. Okay. How do you integrate the third-party libraries into the Angular application? Install via the npm, declare the Angular.json, or the import them directly to the component or the modules. Okay. எப்படி தேர்ட் பார்ட்டி லைப்ரரிஸை இம்போர்ட் பண்ணுவேன்னு கேட்குறான். இது சப்ப மேட்ரு. அதுக்கு அடுத்தது வாட் கன்சிடரேஷன்ஸ் டு யூ மேக் வென் டிசைனிங் த மல்டி லாங்குவேஜ் ஆங்குலர் அப்ளிகேஷன்? யூஸ் ஆங்குலர் I18 ஆர் NGX translate library for internationalization and localization and manage the lazy load translation. This is nice actually. How do you handle the error logging and then monitoring in the Angular application? Use a global error handler and external services like Sentry or Log Rocket for error logging. How would you improve the scalability of Angular app? எப்படி வந்து ஸ்கேலபிலிட்டி இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணுறது அப்படின்னா மைக்ரோ சர்வீசஸ் பேக் யூஸ் ஏபிஐ கேட்வே ஃபார் கம்யூனிகேஷன் லேசி லோட் ஃபீச்சர்ஸ் அண்ட் ஸ்டேட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் ஏபிஐ கேட்வே கம்யூனிகேஷன். ஓகே. How do you implement route results when are they useful? Resolvers prefetch data before navigation. Resolvers வந்து prefetch data before the navigation, ensuring that Weave has the necessary data before being rendered. Okay. What is the purpose of Angular CLI in the large project? CLI helps with scaffolding, building, and optimizing the code, ensuring consistency across the teams. Okay. How do you ensure the type safety in a large applications? Enforce strict TypeScript rules and then type annotation across the services, components, and interfaces. What is the role of decorator in Angular, and how do they support metadata driven architecture? Decorators like @component, @injectable, and @directives provide the metadata that Angular uses to handle the DI, dependency injection, view, and then routing. Okay. How do you manage the asynchronous data stream? This is important. Use RxJX observable operators like map, switch map, fork join to handle the complex asynchronous logic. How would you implement the advanced caching strategy in the Angular application? Advanced caching strategy. Use the service workers for offline memory caching with RxJX, replay subject, or HTTP interceptors for API caching. What are the major differences between the Angular reactive forms and then template reactive form? இதுக்கும் என்ன difference? Reactive forms provide more programmatic approach, better scalability for large applications, while template driven forms are easier for simple applications. Complex க்கு அதை யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம் reactive. How do you design the Angular application for reusability? reusability na multiple players same இதை யூஸ் பண்ணும். Break down the features into modular components, use the dependency injection and design features module. How do you now manage the third party API interceptors in the Angular application? So third party integration interactions எப்படி பண்றோம், encapsulate the API calls within the service layers and use the HTTP interceptors for token management and error handling. What is content projection, and then when you use it? Content projection. Content projection allows the component to reuse the templates by passing external content into the component. Content projection அப்படின்னாவே data passing. Okay. How do you handle the state synchronization between the components in the Angular? Use the shared services, RxJS subject, or centralized state management system like NGRX. What is the purpose of Webpack in the Angular? Webpack வந்து எல்லாத்தையும் pack பண்ணும். Okay, let's see. Webpack bundles the application code and then assets, optimizing for production with features like tree shaking. What is the difference between eager and then easy lazy loading? Eager loading and then lazy loading. Eager loading loads all module upfront, where lazy loading differs module loading until the required. I mean, on demand basis ல ஒர்க் ஆச்சுன்னா அது வந்து lazy loading. Upfront தேவைப்பட்டுச்சுன்னா வந்து அது eager loading. What is hybrid Angular application? Hybrid Angular application. How do you build it to that one? Yeah, hybrid Angular application combines Angular JS and then Angular 2, allowing a gradual migration using the upgrade module. Okay. Yeah. How do you design a progressive web application PWA with Angular? Use Angular's built-in PWA support with the service workers for offline capabilities and then app like experience and then caching. Offline capabilities இருக்கும், caching இருக்கும். அதான் வந்து progressive web app. How do you implement a role-based access control RBACs in the Angular? Role-based access across in the Angular application. Use route guards and directives for controlling access based on the roles, user roles and permissions. How do you set up the automated unit test cases in the Angular applications? Jasmine Karma with the Angular CLI built-in testing units, testing utilities to write and run the unit test for component services and then pipes. How do you handle memory leaks? Memory leaks in the Angular application. Clean up subscriptions, event listeners, and use on ng destroy lifecycle hook to avoid the memory leaks. What is the importance of ng zone in the Angular? ng zone. ng zone helps manage asynchronous task and ensures that changes directions run outside of the Angular zone for better performance. How do you implement accessibility in Angular application? Use Angular CDK A11Y package and follow the best practices like ARIA roles, semantic HTML, best practices like ARIA roles, semantic HTML, keyboard navigations, by which we can implement the better accessibility. Okay. What is tree shaking and how does it works in Angular? Tree shaking is a feature of Webpack that removes unused code during the build process, reducing the bundle size. How do you optimize Angular's apps initial loading time? Implement the lazy loading, tree shaking, AOT, compilation, and optimize the assets delivery using the content delivery networks. How do you handle the security in the Angular forms? Use Angular built-in sanitization and form inputs and then implement the CSRF protection for server communication. How do you scale your Angular applications for high concurrency? Use server-side rendering, SSR, lazy loading, micro frontends, and efficient API design to handle large-scale traffic. What is micro front-end architecture and how does Angular fit it? Micro front ends breaks an application into smaller, independently deploy units which can be achieved with Angular modules. How do you handle authorization across multiple Angular apps in the microservices architecture? Implement a shared authentication service using no JWT or no OAuth token to handle the authorization across the apps. How do you ensure the reusable style across Angular? Use Angular components, encapsulation, SCSS variables, and then shared style modules. What are the advantages of using Angular in the enterprise environment? Angular provides maintainability, scalability, strong typing with the TypeScript, and a structured application architecture. How do you deploy Angular applications in a cloud environment? Use CI/CD pipelines such as GitHub Actions, AWS Code Pipeline, or Jenkins to automate the testing and the deployment to platform like S3, CloudFront, or Firebase hosting.